Well, hi, I am Sandy Moore. I am the curator of exhibitions and programming at the Art Gallery of Regina. And we're kind of a little gallery located in the Neil Balkwell Civic Arts Center. And we serve a very broad art community. Um, and I was really thrilled to be asked by the Museums Association of Saskatchewan to share some information about a project that we launched this past summer from August 14th, 2020 to December. We actually ended up running the project all the way until December 31st, 2020, called Moving Pictures. And it was an augmented reality project. And in a way, it was kind of much easier to do than maybe would be imagined. This word, augmented reality, seems really intimidating. I'd like to share that project and some of the methods that we used and introduce you to that. So with that, I'll start my presentation. The project that the Art Gallery of Regina launched over the summer was called Moving Pictures, and there's just a little snapshot here of me using one of the posters with my phone. So really kind of illustrates how the project worked. And in some ways, we didn't even really take full advantage of everything that you can do with augmented reality. But here we basically used the original version launch of the project was using these posters. And when you viewed the image on the poster through your phone using the free app, it played a video. So that's what you're seeing happening in the image here. And I have some examples of what it looks like through your phone when you're looking at the poster. So here we see one of our posters here. And the video is kind of laid over top. And there's also sound to the videos, but I didn't record the sound here. And the same for this video. See how that image on the poster suddenly comes to life and becomes the video. So this previous poster here, this is a video by Heidi Phillips and Ian Campbell called The Wild. And the next poster was a video by Graham Patterson called La Flèche versus Woodrow, 1972. And I'll talk more about how I selected the artists and the videos later. So Sarah started me off with a lot of great questions that I've kind of used to structure my presentation. So how did I come up with the idea? And it's a really tough question to answer because my mind is a real stew of things. It's hard to say what came first, but our gallery was closed to the public for 5 months. And I really had this kind of revealing moment where we had a big Zoom call with a lot of other galleries and artist-run centers throughout the province. And I kept hearing people talking about, digital burnout, how our lives were just spent totally online at work, doing things like Zoom meetings or doing online programming through websites or YouTube or Facebook Live or Instagram Live and all of these online platforms. And, people were just kind of sick of it, living your life online. And especially, I was also teaching at the university at the time, so all of my lectures were delivered online. And it's a weird feeling to feel like you spend your whole life talking to a computer and making appointments with a computer. And so, when you spend your whole work life doing this, it's kind of the last thing you want to do when you get home is like, okay, there's a screening happening at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I've got to be home and logged in order to catch this screening. And I was also aware, especially through my work teaching in the university, that many people don't have access to a home computer. And for many people, accessing digital content through their phones is their primary method of contact. So I really thought about, what can we do that's very natively available to people who are using their phones to connect to digital technology or experiences online. And so our gallery was closed for 5 months during the COVID-19 pandemic, the early closures, and we were anxiously awaiting when would we reopen and trying to think our way through this. And during that time, I really began to, question a lot about the way we always do things, and to try and change my mindset that this was a real opportunity to change, to embrace this as a potential to really do things differently from the way we've already always done them, to look at what are the problems with the way that we've always done them. So for a very long time, I've been aware that, many people find art galleries to be intimidating spaces. Um, and, like real or perceived barriers to entry. As well, our gallery is sort of a little bit tricky to find. And our name sets up, sometimes not the most realistic expectations for what people will see when they walk in the doors. So, there were kind of a lot of barriers that I was already aware of in terms of our physical space and the cultural ideas built up around going to an art gallery. And I really love the idea of getting outside the gallery and connecting with people in the spaces they already felt comfortable with, using this kind of ubiquitous technology of the cell phone. So I'm also an artist, and I do a lot in digital media. And I had a year previous done a augmented reality project with my artistic collaborator Eric Hill, where we made these animations. We asked people around the city what would they like to see the Capitol Point hole that had existed at Albert and Victoria in Regina, our most major intersection, this huge pit for 8 years or something. And we asked people what would they like to see it filled in with. And then we made animations where if people looked at our kind of guerrilla signs that we put up on the construction fence, they'd hear these imagined ideas what the hole could be filled with and see these animations filling the hole. And from my personal experience, I kind of had tried out a bunch of AR platforms and concluded that Artivive was the easiest for both the person mounting the AR project or the organization mounting the AR project and the end user. And I could also see so much potential for making a lot of static things come to life with audio, with video, with animation, with more images, with 3D models. And I really began to think about this from the gallery context. I'm going to talk a little bit about how augmented reality works here. So really what augmented reality is, it's not so much a thing, I guess, as it's a way of connecting pieces of information. I remember the days that you might make a hot link on your web page that would take you to another web page. And in a way, augmented reality is like that. You have something, in our case, a trigger image, that's going to take you to something else. And in our case, it's a video, but it could be a number of other things. It could be video, sound, animation, more images, 3D models. And really, it's just superimposing this new media that you've attached to your trigger over a view of the real world. And, a pretty common example, or an example that many people are familiar with of AR, is Pokemon Go. So you can see the digital animated Pokemon in, through your camera, a view of your real life surroundings. So at the gallery, we were looking at alternatives to the way we always do things. And one thing that I realized, especially through my work with students, with university students, is I realized that they don't want to read a text. So a standard thing that we do in galleries, and I assume museums too, is that we rely on didactic texts. And we try and keep them short, and we try and make them, certain levels of readability and informative. But there's still, when people are faced with a big wall of text or a big block of text, it seems monolithic. And I found that, many people are intimidated by it. And surprisingly, I found, many of my students, I would tell them to go in, to read the didactic text and to cite it in their works cited. And about half of them came back to me and said they never saw it, even though it's the size of a whole wall in some cases. So I thought, people have a real barrier about a big piece of text that's such a rejection of it, they don't even see it. And so we were thinking about how, what alternative ways do we have for engaging people in exhibitions and understanding the exhibitions that don't require people to read, because it can be inaccessible either with language or literacy issues, or, as I said, just an intimidating wall of text. And one of the thoughts that I had is, really we can make things come to life. And at the same time, I was thinking, well, you can make a static artwork come to life with video or with sound. And at the same time, I thought, our gallery is closed right now. What can we do that's out in the public? How can we engage people with experiences of art? So that's, it's sort of out of this stew of ideas that the idea for moving pictures came about, where I really wanted people to have this magical experience with art, and kind of disciplines of art they might normally not get to experience. So video art, it sounds maybe a little bit exotic, and it might not be the type of artwork that people oftentimes have an opportunity to experience. And I really wanted to bring this out into the world, and really wanted to also provide a kind of empowering experience with technology. It was really exciting for me to see so many people, point their phone at a poster and to suddenly hear and see these images moving. That it was really surprising. You could tell that it was incredibly engaging and sort of a triumph for people, like, oh, I made it work. So that's sort of, I guess, moving pictures. I don't know if that really describes where the idea came from, but many sources. So I came up with this project, Moving Pictures, and I'll explain a little bit about how I came up with the theme for the project. But this is a list of the artists that I included, and the Art Gallery of Regina, our mission and mandate is to support artists from Saskatchewan or kind of adjacent treaty territories. And I tried to really present a variety of works by a variety of artists that really told Saskatchewan stories, but not presenting stereotyped notions of Saskatchewan. So all of the artists that I've included are either currently or former Saskatchewan artists, or from, I think the only ones who are not current or former Saskatchewan residents would be Theo Pelmis and Kristen Snowbird. But they're from a sort of adjacent treaty territory, and I felt that their video was really worth sharing with people here as well. And this is just a look at some images from all of the videos that we included in Moving Pictures. So the top left, we have Rania Alharthi's Unknown, Lindsay Arnold's The Messenger, Ian Campbell and Heidi Phillips' The Wild, Dennis Jackson's Journey Through Fear, David Garneau's Hoop Dancers, John Graham's Trio, Graham Patterson's La Flèche versus Woodrow 1972, Theo Pelmis and Kristen Snowbird's Adam and Eve Soto, and Lindsay Rawuski's Light Movement #1. And it's kind of, in some ways, an eclectic program, but I will explain sort of the thread that ties all of these works together. So yes, as I said, I really wanted to share Saskatchewan stories that many people could relate to and see their own experiences reflected in an artist's work, but not being stereotypical ideas about Saskatchewan. And another factor that influenced my choice of artists was looking to include artists who lived outside of our major communities. So for example, Lindsay Arnold lives in North Portal, which I think is quite a small community. So I also wanted to break down these notions of not only is video art and augmented reality something for big city people, but that, artists creating video art don't need to be big city people, and they can share visions of their life and experience from other places. And all of the videos had to be short. When I first started out, I was actually hoping to have videos no longer than a minute, but those are pretty scarce. And so I ended up choosing videos that were under 5 minutes. And really that's about being kind to the viewer of the artwork, where we don't want them to have to hold their arm up, to hold their phone up in front of the poster for over 5 minutes. It gets, it gets pretty long. And I chose the title Moving Pictures. Of course, it means like a film or a video, but also this idea that I really wanted to choose videos that were in some way moving, because we couldn't connect physically. Can we connect emotionally and build understanding through the stories that artists share? I also was very deliberate in selecting works that were already in existence. So I wasn't asking artists to create something new for us. So I was really aware of, you know, the kind of mental stresses that social isolation, living online, and you know, had on everyone, including artists, and that I didn't want to burden artists with, you know, producing something on a very short timeline. It's really asking a lot. And I think it's worth noting, you know, commissioning projects are really huge things to take on. And you really need to give appropriate time, you know, to really expect that you can't, you know, assign artists to make something and expect them to churn it out overnight. And that there's going to be so many kind of hiccups and delays along the way. And that you really need to care for the project as it comes towards completion. So I just made a note here, like, you know, to do a commissioning project in a year would be way too short. Uh, and, you know, I think like 3 years is probably a more reasonable timeline for a commissioning project. So I think we're finally on to another question, which is how did we select who to send the posters to? Um, so this was something that we considered early on, about how we would get the posters out there. So one of the things that we did was contact community service organizations, mostly in Regina. And we asked them for their recommendations about where they thought we should place the posters, where people would see them, kind of places that we might not automatically think of. And as it was important for us to go beyond the walls of our gallery, we also recognized it was important for us to go into, you know, less typical places with the posters. And that includes small communities, and includes suburbs and different neighborhoods that might not be, you know, our hip downtown neighborhoods. And we experienced some small hiccups trying to get poster distribution in the city. So really, I ended up doing this myself as the curator, going around on my bike or with my van, and having a staple gun and a roll of tape and putting them up. We had contacted another organization to hire them to do the postering for us. And I think that organization had experienced a crisis, and it just kind of fizzled out that discussion. Um, and moving, you know, reaching out beyond Regina was always part of our plan with Moving Pictures. So we were also aware that we needed a partner who already had relationships in the communities that we wanted to reach. So again, you know, I was very aware, you know, we can't just go into a community and barge in and say like, hey, help us out. A relationship is something that needs to be built over time, and it needs to be maintained. From that, you know, we approached the Organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils, who has member community arts councils across the province, and they agreed to support our project by contacting their members to distribute the posters on our behalf. And because OSAC also experienced a disruption in their programming because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they actually ended up diverting some of the funds that they have for programming towards our project. So it was a real bonus. We didn't expect that, but we were incredibly grateful for it, and it allowed us to extend the project in time. So OSAC did an open call to their member arts councils to receive and distribute the moving pictures posters on our behalf. One thing that we noticed, I'm not sure if it really ended up being a challenge in the end, but they noted that uptake in the summer to receive and distribute the moving pictures posters was slow for 2 reasons. One of these reasons was that community arts councils tend to be volunteer run, and many of the volunteers were kind of just exhausted because of the stresses of the pandemic and the changes that they had to go through, and just, you know, the changes to our lives at that point. And also towards the end of summer or the beginning of September is harvest time, and it's just an incredibly busy time for many people in rural communities where, you know, they just didn't have time to go out and distribute the posters for us, and maybe no one was walking the streets at that time. They were all just working in the fields from dawn to dusk. And getting outside of the city, again, it was just really important. It was always part of our plan with moving pictures. You know, how can we expand our reach beyond our kind of small sphere here in the city? And I really felt that it was important, and we had such a great opportunity to kind of very easily and kind of elastically to reach out to different communities. I wrote here, and I do believe this, you know, I feel strongly that art can enrich everyone's lives. Art allows us to reflect critically upon our time and space, and it helps us to make sense of our experiences. And as I mentioned before, we wanted to challenge people's ideas about whether art is for them and what art is. So presenting, you know, video art, animation, film by artists, these could be, you know, challenging to some people's ideas about what actually is art and what is the purpose of art. OSAC allowed us to distribute the project to many communities and schools throughout the province. I don't have the information on which schools were introducing the project to their students, but I do have this list from OSAC that said that Larange, Leader, Shaunavon, Moose Jaw, Weyburn, Estevan, Yorkton, and Indian Head were all communities where their local arts councils had distributed moving pictures posters for us. And I know, like Regina and Saskatoon, I put those posters up myself. And even if I happened to be on a trip outside of the city, I went to Ogama and I went to Willow Bunch and I put up posters there. We also we also made the Moving Pictures program available as a free on-demand screening with French and English descriptions through the Vukavu platform. And this was free to audiences all over the world from September 26 to October 26. One of the challenges, and I'll probably come back to this later with this distribution method, is Vukavu also, it's mainly a kind of Vukavu is kind of a hub for curators and video art distributors, so that with my curator account on Vukavu, I can go and I can look at all of these film and video artworks by Canadian artists, and to contact the distributor to rent them for an exhibition. And so they're not really set up for public screenings, but because of the pandemic, they tried to adapt their platform to meet the needs of all of their clients, and to become an online screening platform. The difficulty with this is, although the screening was free, it's a little bit arcane how to navigate their website. And a lot of what you have to do is sign up for a free account. But this is, again, an added barrier to people. And what Vukavu reported back to me is that when people were asked to sign up for a free account on their platform, they might just go, oh, actually, I won't watch it. But we did have views all over the world, and that was great. And we also, you know, that was important to us to be able to to include some activity that included that French language translation, and again, just kind of widen our scope. So I wrote here, the project captured the public imagination, earning praise for showing art to people in unlikely places. So a quote from curator Wayne Bearwald: "Imagine seeing video art in the Jolly Giant pub in Willow Bunch." So I had gone to Willow Bunch and I had put some posters up there. I met someone on the street. I asked them, hey, where should I put these? And which ones do you want to see? And they gave me the recommendations. One of them was the pub, and they said that one. Joanne Gregoire from the Grand Coteau Heritage Cultural Center wrote to me how thrilled we are to be participating in the Moving Pictures project. What a fantastic idea. Thank you for including other locations throughout the province. We have posters proudly displayed throughout the town of Shaunavon. And, you know, it was great to receive this kind of feedback to demonstrate that communities outside our major cities are eager to be included in innovative ways for citizens to share, to experience art, and to receive the challenging messages that artists share. So these are, again, some of the locations that we were able to take moving pictures. And these are our posters. So on each of them, we kind of had this standard format of a hand holding a phone, sort of illustrative of how you're meant to experience the project. And there's a still image in each of the posters. That's the trigger image. That's what will trigger the video eventually. There's also some information about the artist in the video included on each poster, as well as steps for how to use the poster and view the video. And of course, all of our sponsors, our funders, and our partners are recognized on the poster. And I really can't downplay how important the support of our funding organization, partners, sponsors was to the success of this project. And then we also adapted the project. We received, and I'll talk about this again, but we kind of had this wonderful success where we were able to keep the ball of this project rolling. And we got some funding in November, and I thought, well, this is great. I'll just keep this project going. However, I thought posters and experiencing things in outdoor public places, probably not the best or most successful approach to Saskatchewan in December. So I thought about this. Initially, I had thought about billboards, and then suddenly I almost had this shocking realization. Again, it's hard to say where thoughts come from. And I thought, you know, community newspapers, you know, they really are so critical to these communities, and they make the rounds, and people really read them from start to finish. And so we contacted a series of community newspapers and placed ads in the papers that function just like the posters. So people at home with their cup of coffee at the kitchen table can take out their phone and play the videos from there. And I can't say off the top of my head exactly what communities all of these papers reach, but really we covered pretty much the entire province, and some of these papers serve a lot of very remote communities and northern communities, but we did cover the center and the south of the province as well, and as well as the cities. And these are an example of what the newspaper ads looked like. And I also don't remember exactly which videos I placed in which newspapers, but I really thought about, well, maybe for, Prince Albert, I'm going to give them something that's a little bit challenging. So, I really didn't try and play it safe and underestimate the types of audiences that would be experiencing the project. So one of the questions Sarah had for me was about the time frame for the project. And one thing I realized when I had the idea for moving pictures back in June, I realized that, timeliness was key to the success, launching it quickly, taking advantage of the warm weather when people are outside, and also filling the gaps when many centers, including our own, were closed to the public. Oh, and I left some of the questions in there. I apologize. Um, so this is kind of how it came. In June, I had this Zoom call with all of our gallery colleagues throughout the province talking about digital burnout. And I kind of had this idea, let's do this screening series that's delivered through cell phones and posters. So I set to work immediately researching artists and artworks. I did studio visits over Zoom with artists. I contacted video art distributors, and I also looked on the Vukavu platform with my curator membership. And I refined the theme of moving as the types of videos that I wanted to include. So videos that activated empathy, created understanding of our complex identities, draw upon memories, commonality, and offer new insights. And again, right from the start, I thought, if I want to take this beyond this city, which I really felt was quite important, I contacted OSAC about becoming a partner for us. And then on July 1st, I submitted a grant to Sask Arts Council, and it was really just a little grant, a micro grant, maximum $2,000. And happily, in August, we got word back, we received that Sask Arts Council grant. And so I immediately set to work on getting the project rolling, because we really wanted to have it launched. I think we had hoped to launch it August 7th, and I think we actually launched it August 14th. So, it was really pretty good turnaround. So we also applied for and received some sponsorship from SaskTel. I applied for a Culture Day sponsorship. I applied for a special digital strategies grant from the Canada Council for projects that responded to COVID-19. This is the boring part of being a curator that probably a lot of museum administrators know. You need to have contracts and agreements. So I had to, execute contracts with artists, make the rental agreements with distributors, and get the files from them. We couldn't just have a screening copy. We need an actual file. And that's because we needed to convert the files and upload them to the Artavive platform. And I needed to hire technicians to do that work for us. Although I'm a technology artist and I'm capable of this, I kind of realistically looked at things and I thought, do I want to do this? Do I want this frustration? Actually, I want to hire someone who's a little bit more, this is part of their daily tasks, and they're going to be so much more smooth at it than I will be. I also really had to negotiate a lot with Artavive. So Artavive is a great platform, and I 100% support them or recommend them. But they kind of have, if you're an artist using their platform, it's free. If you're an institution using their platform, it's quite expensive, and they don't see the difference between a place like the Art Gallery of Regina, where we only have 2 staff, versus the Museum of Modern Art in New York. To us, they're all this. To them, we're all the same, and they want to charge us the same price. So I had to, kind of send a lot of emails back and forth, and kind of plead our case, like we're not big, we don't have a lot of money. Please give us a discount. So they did. We have an incredible designer that we work with, and I really, kind of put him through his paces, like, okay, we need some posters now. And, he really rose to the challenge, and, getting all the information that you need on the posters in a way that's easy to take in for people, that's a real challenge. And I think we did a great job. And then I basically went to the printers, picked up a big box of posters, drove over to OSAC, and I got them to distribute half of the posters that we printed in August. Then September, very exciting news. We received a really big sponsorship from Culture Days, which allowed me to add some additional artists to the project. So we grew the project from including 5 videos to now including 9 videos and films by artists. And I will say, our priority is really about honoring artists' work. So part of this is delivering it to appreciative audiences, but another part of this is paying artists fairly for their work. So it was exciting for me to, give more money to more artists and include more artists in the project. And we also, this is when we entered our agreement with Vukavu to do the online screening. And this was kind of a condition of our Culture Days sponsorship. So Culture Days wanted to see partnerships in place, but they wanted to see a national distribution plan. So just Saskatchewan wide wasn't really enough for that sponsorship. And I think, there were pluses and minuses to our agreement with Vukavu. As I said, their platform is not really meant for public screenings. So there was a little bit of friction for users there. And it did actually cost us a fair amount of money, but they did a lot of work also, putting our program on their website. This Culture Days funding also allowed us to have our video and project descriptions translated into French. We designed and printed additional posters, and we distributed these additional posters with the assistance of OSAC. And so this year, Culture Days was month-long, which I also am in big favor of. I think, packing everything into one weekend never really makes sense to me. It's like how, September is already crazy busy, and we can't go to everything. So I really loved that it was that it's now a month long. And so we had our free online screening for anyone in the world on Vukavu, and we had our all 9 projects viewable through the moving pictures posters. And this additional Culture Day sponsorship allowed us to do a little bit of advertising for the project as well, which I think was also important. And I haven't mentioned it here, but we did also receive like a lot of media coverage, which was really exciting. Again, I think this really sparked people's imaginations. Like, we haven't seen anything like this, and it's easy and it's fun. Then in November, so we had concluded that project, I thought, at the end of October. And in November, we received a word that we received our Canada Council Digital Strategies grant. So I kind of scrambled and I thought, yes, I really want to extend this project. I'm excited about this funding and this new challenge. So I contacted the artists, and again, it's very central to my principles and our organization that artists are always fairly remunerated for their work. So I made new agreements with the artists to extend the duration of the project and to also make an additional payment to them. And I thought about, how can we change the project to be accessible during cold weather, and hit upon this idea of placing the images in community newspapers. So we did that. And for the month of December, we ran multiple ads in multiple newspapers across the province. Reaching even audiences that we hadn't been able to reach through our partnership with OSAC and their member arts councils. And December 31st, hard to believe, the project concluded. So it's been it's funny, for something that I thought was just going to be a quick off the cuff thing, it really ended up growing and changing and being sustained over quite a long period of time. So here I said, it grew and evolved with each grant, sponsorship, and partnership. And this idea of delivering moving image artworks using augmented reality proved to be highly adaptable and could be extended in various ways over time. So another question, great question, was it difficult to use AR? This again, this is why I chose Art Aviv. It's really easy. It's easy for the person or organization launching the project, and it's easy for the end user. So really, there is a little bit of friction in that you need to download a free app. But other than that, you just look at the image from your phone, and this artificial intelligence says, I recognize that trigger image. It goes with this video, and it starts playing the video for you. And their image recognition is also really good. So other augmented reality platforms, their image recognition isn't as fast, isn't as crisp, isn't as precise. So it's a really great platform. And this is a shot of what your project creation screen in Artivive looks like. So really on the left, it says drop your image here. That's where you put a still image called the trigger image. And on the right, drop your video there. So any kind of video file, it could be a film converted to a video format, video file, animation, or a GIF. And that you can also, there is a 3D way of working with Artivive 2 that I didn't use, where it's not just an overlay, but it's more of like you can place objects in a parent space overlaid over a real world view. And you can make your video transparent. So that's what I mentioned, the project I did as an artist with my collaborator, Eric Hill. We made our video transparent. So that means you wouldn't see a square overlaid over the Capital Point construction pit. You just saw the animated things filling the hole. But for this project, in a way, I didn't even use all of the amazing capabilities of augmented reality. It was a very simple, like, here's the image, here's the video, laying one over the other. So really, it was incredibly simple. So as I mentioned, I hired technicians who were paid for their work to convert the video files, and I'll explain what they needed to do. I also included in my contract with the artist an additional fee for them preparing what's called the trigger image. So the trigger image, it's not difficult, but there are, it ended up being one of the trickier parts in the process for it. So there's specifications. It needs to be a JPEG or a PNG file. It can't be bigger than 12 megabytes, and it needs to be a minimum dimension of 320 pixels and a maximum dimension of 10,000 pixels. And video files, the only real limitation on video files is that they have to be under 100 megabytes. So that's actually pretty small for a video file, and that was mainly what the technicians were doing, which were crunching down those video files but in a way that we wouldn't lose the image quality. We still want it to be a great video for people to view and listen to. So I gave here this example, how much this one video file was reduced by. So from over 1 gigabyte to, I actually can't read, it's cut off on my screen. Is it 14 megabytes? Okay. One of the other slight challenges we experienced was the video, the aspect ratio and the dimension of the video and the trigger image must be exactly the same size. And basically this is because Artivive is going to use the trigger image kind of like a cutout to show the video through. So if it's not the same size, it's going to cut off the video in a way that might not be ideal. It might letterbox it in some strange way. You'll get black bars at the side or at the top and the bottom. And Artivive describes it this way: the image should be entirely covered by the video. This way, the image becomes a window into another dimension. And as I said, although the trigger image was not incredibly difficult, it was one of the things where we often had to go back to artists and either ask them to make some adjustments to their image or ask their permission for us to make adjustments on their behalf. And the cool thing also about the trigger image, you could use a still from the video, or you could have a totally different image that works as the trigger image. So you're connecting those two things through the Artivive interface. So some of the things that make a good trigger image are good contrast, rich in detail, avoiding symmetry, and avoiding repetitive patterns. So symmetry and patterns can confuse the image recognition technology. So I have a few examples here. So this one, because it's blurry, it's very soft and fuzzy and low contrast, it doesn't work well as a trigger image. So this little shot on the left where you see there's some little yellow plus signs, that's where the technology is working to say, okay, here's a recognizable piece of the image to me. So there's not very many of them. If we compare this to something where we see on the left here, there's a lot of those yellow plus signs. The technology is saying, oh, I can see a lot of very specific features. And computers, they look at images very differently than we do. So it's picked out all these points that says, okay, here's a good piece of information for me to recognize this image here where all those yellow plus signs are. So there's like strongly defined lines, there's high contrast, there's not a lot of symmetry in this image. So it works really well. And an example from our project, oh, I'm sorry, this got moved up a bit. So you can see the image on the left. These are both the trigger images from Rania Al-Harthy's video or film Unknown. So on the left was the original image that she provided us, and it was rated very poorly in terms of image recognition. So when you load it onto the RDV platform, it gives you a star rating out of 5 stars, and this was 0. And the reason is it's very low contrast. There's a lot of soft, ill-defined edges, and it's fairly symmetrical. And really just by increasing the contrast by quite a lot, we improve the image recognition to a 3 or a 4 on the right. So, you know, you don't have to make really huge changes. You don't need to redesign an image from scratch. So our partnerships, as I mentioned, we really wouldn't have had the success with this project that we had were it not for our partners. So OSAC was incredible. They really kept enthusiasm for the project going and were great at helping us find collaborators in terms of distribution through community arts councils and getting the project into schools across Saskatchewan too. Again, I had just a personal experience. I was out putting up posters myself, and there was a group of children playing in a park. And they came over, they were curious about what I was doing. So I pulled up my phone and I showed them. And actually the video or the film that we looked at on my phone was Rania Al-Harthy's Unknown. And we had an incredible conversation about what it's like to be a newcomer, what it may feel like to be homesick, what kind of traditions we might have, how we celebrate Canada Day. And it was a really rich conversation. And, you know, I'm really excited that the project was also able to be disseminated in schools because, again, I think, you know, learning about each other and sharing experiences through artworks is, you know, one of the real reasons that we have art and we value art in our society. And as I mentioned, Organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils contributed funds to the project. So they gave us, basically they matched our initial grant from Sask Arts Board, which enabled us just to, you know, print more posters, you know, include more artists in the project. And then they had noticed a sort of slow uptake over the summer for the reasons that I mentioned. And they said, you know, we'd like to help you keep this project going. And they actually paid our cost to continue to host the project on RDV for an additional 2 months, I think. So that was also a great contribution by OSAC, like super helpful. And as I mentioned, much of their programming was canceled because of the pandemic. So they were really looking for ways to reach out and deliver art to communities across the province as well. So it really was a perfect relationship. And our partnership with Vukavu, you know, it was a little bit different. We paid them for them to create the screening page on their website for us. So that cost us about $1,500. But it was a lot of work, as I mentioned, for them to make the screening pages for us. And they also promoted our Moving Pictures program to their networks, and they assisted us in securing a French language translator. So lessons learned. Mostly this project was pretty successful. And I think in some ways I just really, I tried to keep it small and manageable and be realistic about what I as one person could achieve, what an organization that's 2 people can achieve, and think about what our goals were. So yeah, as I mentioned, you know, we like the idea of making moving pictures available as an on-demand screening to anyone in the world, but there were some barriers inherent to the Vukavu platform. And really doing an online screening wasn't really core to this project. We wanted to provide an alternative to, watching things on your TV or your computer screen. We wanted to meet people out on the streets. And I think it's not really a lesson learned or a limitation, but it really was my dream. And I hope that I could make this happen in the future. For an AR project like this, that it could include free Wi-Fi or data for users. I'm somebody who has a $30 a month phone plan, and so I never use data. And I think there's probably a lot of people in the same situation as me. So I would love to be able to mount this with some sort of Wi-Fi hotspot that people could tap into to experience these videos or whatever AR projects out in the world. And would we do it again? I would love to. I really felt like this was a successful project on so many levels, including, from the artist perspective. I got so many wonderful letters from the artists saying how much they appreciated, how hard we work to disseminate their work for them, and how exciting it was that so many people got to experience it. So some of the most successful videos were viewed over 300 times using the Art of Eve app, and we had 9 videos that people could view. So it is actually quite a lot of views. And I can imagine the AGR mounting projects that are modeled after moving pictures on an annual basis. I really love the idea of doing something outside when the weather is warm and nobody really wants to go inside a stuffy old gallery. And as I said, I see so much potential, and I would really love to see organizations all across the province taking up augmented reality as a way to make artwork or other exhibits or objects come to life and speak directly to viewers. So I mentioned that I see people who don't want to read a bunch of text when they come to an exhibit or an exhibition, and AR offers a lot of exciting possibilities for overcoming barriers to engagement and understanding. So if you want to learn more about our project, we have our website, artgalleryofregina.ca, and we have a page where the Moving Pictures project is at the top. And if you do come across the poster, you can actually still view the videos. It will just have an Art of Eve watermark over it because the time that we paid for has ended. And if you want to check out Art of Eve yourself, they're just at artofeve.com. And I know that there are other AR platforms out there, including one being developed by the University of Saskatchewan. And I think Art of Eve is a very trustworthy platform. And, we also don't want to do something like building a technology from scratch, not only because it's difficult, but you have to maintain it. Every time a phone operating system is updated, your app needs to be updated as well. So there's something great about having this kind of commercial product there, where I think they also are very ethical with the way that they store like our files, that these videos by artists won't suddenly be kind of distributed in some other strange way. But, I really am eager to see what progress the U of S makes with their augmented reality platform because of issues like that. The Art of Eve is in Austria. So we just don't have that much connection and that much control over our files and our information. And as I mentioned, we had not only a great kind of community reaction and really supportive reactions from artists in the projects, but really great media coverage. So I've included links there to an article in the Leader Post, CBC Radio broadcast, and CTV. There was also an article that I've put PDFs on our website as well. There was an article in Engage magazine. SaskTel, their internal newsletter, did a story about the project as well that I've posted on our website. So, we really are grateful that the media did some coverage of this project too, and was hopefully encouraging people to engage with moving pictures out in the wild.
That was awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Once again, I really appreciated being invited to talk about our project. And I guess I should put it out there. Maybe you want to put it out there on my behalf. If anyone from the Museums Association of Saskatchewan, like any of your members, want to contact me and ask me, kind of specific questions, if they are like, do you think it'll work for this project? Or, how could we do this? I'm really happy to share my experiences and what I've learned.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great for sure.